Hello YouTubers, it's GoldStandard00924 coming at you with another video. This is going to be my overall thoughts on Power Rangers Megaforce thus far. Overall, this season I have to say was just really average at best. A lot of the Power Ranger characters just didn't really click well for me. Because you only have like 20 episodes to cram in with, especially when you're adapting, the Super Sentai season called Ghost Ager, I believe. So they crammed a lot of stuff into 20 episodes, and like the introduction of like new Megazords and some of the armor enhancements that they acquired throughout the series. And then you also have villains that were kind of coming and going, and it was just very disorganized, if to kind of summarize it at best. And the Power Rangers characters themselves just really felt very flat. Most of the Rangers just pretty much retained the same basic personalities they had from the pilot episode of Megaforce. Um, and Megaforce, when going in this season, I mean, a lot of people really had some high hopes going in. A lot of the Power Ranger fans just detested Power Rangers Samurai, and the fact that it just felt very at a point where the Rangers were really, I mean, they were just carbon copies of a lot of the Super Sentai series called Shinkenger, and the Samurai counterpart, the Japanese counterpart, the Power Rangers Samurai. So a lot of people just were kind of thrown off by the fact that they just basically became like a blatant ripoff of that particular Sentai series. Just borrowing a lot of Japanese archetypes and translating it into America, but piss poorly. And then, that series ended and we got into like Power Rangers Megaforce. So, since this was kind of like the 20th season of Power Rangers, a lot of people, were kind of wondering, which Power Ranger from the past is going to come back, is, Tommy going to come back? You know, is Jason going to come back? Or like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers going to reunite? Or if, some of the other Rangers from like the Disney seasons would come back. But then we all got to hear some of the unfortunate news that certain Rangers are asked to. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that some of the Rangers were given the offer to go to New Zealand and make a little cameo, but some of the actors that portrayed the Power Rangers turned it down because of the lack of pay and the fact that they didn't really get like 5-6 months in advance, as far as giving them the time to kind of rearrange everything that goes on, and while getting a trip over to New Zealand to shoot some of those Legendary War episodes that they were going to have. So that kind of really sparked a lot of controversy, especially like behind the scenes and stuff. So certain actors from the past Power Ranger series were kind of most part turning down the offer, and and it just and people and ever since then, fans just kind of were pretty concerned about what the Legendary War from for the next Power Ranger season, Megaforce, Super Megaforce. So, and a lot of people just did feel that it won't live up to the hype. And then Power Ranger Megaforce arrives. The first episode, Mega Mission. So we get to introduce the 5 teenagers who are chosen by a mentor by the name of Gosei, and he was trained by Zordon prior to his death. So he recruits these 5 teenagers and selects them to become the Megaforce Power Rangers. Just much in the similar veins to what Zordon did with the original 5 Rangers back in Mighty Morphin. So Mega Mission was kind of a one-off episode. Just a very basic, simple to the point type of episode. And even though it was sort of a kind of a blatant ripoff of Day of the Dumpster, I mean, it was a very solid episode. Um, and basically, people just started like maybe Power Rangers Megaforce might turn out to be a step up from the previous season. So then we get to many episodes later, and basically all that momentum that it had just really went down the tank. You saw a lot of these formulaic one-off episodes. I mean, and most of those episodes, involve a villain doing something to like the random civilians, like getting caught in their trap or they're placed under this sort of weird spell. I mean, they tend to focus on a lot of the random civilians of the day, and and it kind of got to the point where the Power Rangers just barely had any screen time, and most of the episodes really focused more on the Rangers morphed, and just basically going in and kicking ass, and we barely get to see some of the unmorphed action. So you don't really, unlike like many of the past Power Rangers seasons where they'll have like a character focus of the day. Most of the other episodes just really focused on just the generic villains coming in and destroying the city, and Power Rangers going in to counteract the evil that goes on, and that's basically all that happens there. Now there's some little moments that go on, with Jake's crush on Gia. Jake and Gia were like the Black and Yellow Rangers respectively. So it doesn't really expand beyond that sort of phase. And you have I guess I could just mention some of the other Power Rangers. So basically you have Troy, the leader of the team, the Red Ranger. He was kind of like the loner, kind of like the lone wolf before coming in and becoming a Power Ranger, because he was actually moved into the new town setting of the season, and he was trained in karate. So he was selected as the leader as well as the Red Ranger. Then you have like Noah, who's kind of like the modern day Billy version, the Blue Ranger. So he was kind of like the technological geek that makes modifications, that emphasizes on technology gadgets and whatnot. And then you have Emma, who's like the Pink Ranger, the kind of like the Trini version, the pink, kind of like the Trini of the Pink Rangers, to kind of sum it best. So she kind of emphasizes on she enjoys BMX racing, and just really trying to kind of do whatever she can to protect the overall environment as far as like wildlife goes. And so you have all these five Rangers, and they go out there, they take out the evil, just the basic plot of that. And getting back on like some of the storyline structure of the season, I mean, like I said, it just felt very disorganized, and some of the Power Rangers barely got any true focus. And then you get to like maybe 8 episodes in, you started seeing like Robo Knight, and he was kind of like an unofficial Sixth Ranger, and he basically didn't really have a clue about the spirituality of humanity, so he didn't really understand the psychological aspect of about humans. So Robo Knight comes in, and he's kind of like the unofficial extra ranger. Whenever the Power Rangers get their asses whooped, so Robo Knight comes in, saves the day, and throughout the course of his debut, he starts to really interact with some random civilians and understanding some of the side effects of being of a human being. And that kind of goes on throughout pretty much most of Megaforce. And, and basically out of all the allies characters in the season, it seemed like Robo Knight just seemed to have more of the focal points of this season. And, the Power Rangers just felt really flat characters. I mean, if you watch like 20 episodes, it's like, you're not really missing much, except for maybe like the last 2 episodes of Megaforce. But, I mean, it's just really hard to kind of really dive into. I mean, a couple of months ago, I actually did a video about how I sort of felt let down by the season a little bit. Just hoping that like after 10 episodes, they finally start doing something with them. And then we fast forward to like September when the show came back from its little hiatus. so far it's just the same old, same old. It's like, you have Gia, just a character I can't really stand. I mean, yeah, she's attractive and all, but she was just obviously looked at as a Mary Sue. She's very outstanding in like school academics. She's a skilled martial artist. She's pretty. Very attractive looking lady. Um, it just seemed like they just made her very superficial, and I personally couldn't stand her. I mean, she was kind of coined as Miss Perfect, quote unquote, and Jake has a crush on her, but Gia just kind of denies it. Um, so she didn't really get a whole bunch. She didn't really get any true focal episodes, really. She unless you want to count the partial focus episode she had with Emma, where like they were caught under this sort of spell where they just didn't that they couldn't stand each other and stuff. But that was really about it. I mean, they don't really explore the whole Jake and Gia stuff. I mean, it's Power Rangers over the years. I mean, they tend to like tease relationships, but they don't really go into full effect. Because Power Rangers is supposed to be aimed towards boys. They have to focus on the merchandise and selling the toys to kids. They can't really focus more on like some of the in-depth storytelling and anything like that. And that's kind of one of the things I really wonder as to why Power Rangers kind of gets looked down upon by a lot of the critics. I mean, you look at a lot of the other popular kids franchises that are out there. You watch like some of the DC Marvel cartoons. You watch some of like shows like Gargoyles and a lot of the action adventure live action shows that are like on prime time, like some of the Joss Whedon shows. But and then you look at Power Rangers, it just felt like it's really out of touch with the audiences. So I mean, basically Power Rangers just has this sort of status quo, really. That we gotta focus on the toys and the merchandise, but we can't focus on the storyline and stuff. And that's always one of the things that really pisses me off, or at least peeves me. But whatever the case may is, it's the same situation. But I mean, I'm not saying the show should be like a Joss Whedon show, like I discussed, like a Buffy, Angel, or Firefly, or even most recently the Marvel's Agents of Shield series. But I'm not expecting it to be along those lines. But at least put attempt at it. At least put effort in developing a little bit about these characters. Now, even some of the Disney seasons I've watched in the past actually took the time to have like a certain character of the day type of episodes, and just trying to overcome some obstacles that get in the way and stuff. Now, granted, some of the characters never really live up to their full potential, but at least you knew that they were at least trying. But then you get to like some of the recent seasons like Samurai and Megaforce, it just feels like just really flat. Now, obviously, for Megaforce, there's just barely any motivation for a certain story. Just have villains coming in and they're just demolishing they're always getting their asses demolished by the Power Rangers. I mean, even if it seems like the Power Rangers are getting their asses whooped, they're just gonna kick their villain's ass in like one episode, and that's another thing that I can't really take the villains very seriously in this season. Especially if they're perceived to be like the toughest villains of the planet. And it's just really kind of sad. But what can you do? I mean, even some of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at least had to go through a lot of obstacles. I mean, look at Green with Evil. The Green Ranger was there, and Tommy was caught in this spell by Rita. And then, the Green Ranger came in, kicked the Power Rangers' ass, shut down Zordon, destroyed the interior of the command center. It's like, the Power Rangers were just under, like, this sort of living hell. And, with Megaforce, it's like, it's just like they're overcoming the odds. I mean, even though there are some obstacles that are in the way, they're just going to overcome it with ease. And that's kind of one of the things that I mean, with Megaforce, it tries to be like MMPR, but it just fails to have that sort of charm and heart that MMPR had that Megaforce doesn't have. Um, but it's just really cringeworthy. It's just very frustrating to watch, and just very rushed episodes, and just very corny dialogue that shouldn't be added. I mean, even some of the fight scenes, even the villains were like always blabbering, just always constant chattering, even when they fight, and as well as the Power Rangers themselves. And it's been a problem like that since Samurai. Um, and just the fight scenes, just with the unnecessary dialogue that goes on, like they keep talking, and it just gets fucking annoying. Excuse my language there. Uh, what else could I say? Um, so that's really pretty much my overall thoughts on Megaforce thus far. Just a season that has pretty much a lot of potential, but with a lot of certain obstacles, certain restrictions like budget constraints, time constraints, and whatnot, just really holding back what Power Rangers Megaforce could have been. So I mean, Megaforce was just such a letdown. It's a pretty average season at best, but I feel it should have been so much more. Um, but I can't really expect too much for Super Megaforce. I mean, if it turns out to be great, then it's gonna be great. But I'm not getting my hopes up on this. I mean, Saban might continue utilizing the same formula that they had with Samurai and Megaforce, just focusing more on the action and less on the characters. So it's really unfortunate, but if it turns out to be the case, so that's really, like I said, this is really it for my video. So thank you all for watching. I apologize if I did kind of chatter a little too much, but just trying to get my thoughts out there. So yeah, I mean, thank you all for watching, and until next time, this is the Gold Standard User 924 signing out.